there's a whole category of airdrops that comes down to a single quiet question. Did you actually use this network while it was young, before it had a token, before anyone was watching? These are the layer 2 airdrops, the rewards handed out by the faster, cheaper networks that run on top of a base chain and settle back down to it. Many of them launch with no token at all, bootstrap themselves on the backs of early real users, and only later turn around and reward the wallets that showed up first. It is one of the largest and most farmed categories in the entire space, and also one of the most misunderstood. I run real proxy and cloud phone farms for a living, and I treat airdrop farming as operations rather than a lottery, which means I pay close attention to the signals that are hard to fake and easy to respect. None of what follows is financial advice, none of it predicts a token or a price, and nothing here promises you a drop of any kind. It is simply how this class of airdrop measures people, why the cheapness of these networks makes them so easy to farm badly, and what actually holds up when a rollup finally decides who its real early users were. So start with what one of these networks actually is. Our layer 2, or rollup, is a network that runs on top of a slower, more expensive base chain, batching up thousands of transactions and settling a compact proof of them back down to that base. The point is speed and cost, transactions that clear in moments for a tiny fraction of what the base layer charges. But a fresh rollup is an empty room. It has the technology and nothing else. No liquidity, no users, no reason for anyone to build on it. So it does the thing empty networks do. It invites people in early and in many cases later rewards the ones who genuinely showed up and used it. And that reward makes more sense than it first looks. An unproven network is asking people to take a real risk, to bridge actual money onto something new, to trust apps that have barely any track record, to spend time somewhere that might quietly die. The early users who do that anyway are the ones who make the network real, who bring the liquidity and the activity that convince the next wave it is worth their while. Rewarding them after the fact is simply a way of paying back the people who took the risk of using the thing before it was safe or obvious or crowded. Then the one. What these distributions tend to measure is a shape, the shape of a genuine early user. How many different apps on the network you actually touched, not just one. How much real value you bridged in and moved around. How long you stayed active across weeks and months rather than a single afternoon. Whether you came back. Breadth, depth, and longevity woven together into a picture that either looks like a real person exploring a young network or looks like something else entirely. Here is the trap that is unique to this category. Because a rollup is deliberately cheap, it costs almost nothing to fire off a transaction, which tempts people into faking enormous activity for a pittance. Thousands of tiny swaps, back and forth, wallet after wallet, all for a few cents each. But cheap volume is exactly what these measurements have learned to discount. A wallet that made 1,000 meaningless transactions that moved nothing and used nothing is not a power user, it is noise, and repetitive scripted activity from a fresh wallet is one of the easiest patterns in the whole space to recognize and quietly set aside. Now the defensive part, explained the way I always explain it, from the outside and honestly. A rollup and the analysts who design its distribution know that one operator will be tempted to fake a whole crowd of early users, spinning up a swarm of wallets that each bridge the same amount, touch the same free apps in the same order, and went active in the same narrow window, every one of them funded from the same place. That coordinated block reads as precisely what it is, one entity wearing many hats. In the same way a cluster of trading wallets gives itself away on the base chain. I'm describing how that detection works so you understand the terrain, not handing you a method to slip through it, because slipping through it is neither the point nor something I would ever coach. This is why farms of near identical wallets tend to get discounted, often heavily. Real early users are messy. They bridge different amounts. They wander into different apps. They show up at odd hours. Some of them stay for months, and some drift away after a week. 100 wallets that all bridged the same figure, ran the same loop of transactions, and fell silent together do not look like 100 curious people. They look like one operator counted 100 times. The clustering that defends these programs reads the shared funding trail. The identical route through the apps and the synchronized timing and simply sets the whole block aside. There's a playing cost reality underneath all of this, even on a cheap network. Bridging real value onto a rollup ties up actual money, and every wallet you fund has to be filled from the base layer first, which is where the fees are not cheap at all. Spread across a swarm, those funding costs and bridge fees multiply quietly until you are spending real capital to manufacture the mere appearance of a crowd. That pushes you back to the one rule I hold on to through all of this: only genuinely use a network you would want to use anyway, because a roll-up that only makes sense as a bet on a drop is one you are subsidizing, not farming. The genuine usage comes in a few recognizable shapes, and touching several of them is closer to how a real person behaves than hammering one. You bridge assets in and actually do something with them. You swap on the network's own exchanges. You provide liquidity or lend and borrow on its money markets. You mint or use the flagship apps that people are actually there for. None of this is a checklist to grind mechanically. It is just what it looks like to explore a young network you find genuinely interesting. And the wallets that did exactly that are the ones these measurements are built to find. Many of these networks run a testnet long before the real thing, and some do weigh testnet participation when they design a distribution. Taking part on a testnet, using the network with valueless tokens while the team stress tests can genuinely count. But for most rollups, the heaviest signal is real usage on the live network, real value bridged and moved, because that is far harder to fake at scale than clicking through a free testnet. Treat the testnet as worth doing if you are genuinely early and curious, and the mainnet usage as the thing that most reliably tells the network you will truly hear. The timing lesson from the rest of airdrop farming carries straight over. Usage history accumulates, and you cannot backdate months of genuine activity onto a wallet that only woke up last week. A wallet that starts bridging and swapping the moment a token begins to be rumored has exactly that much history behind it and nothing more, no matter how busy it looks from that day on. The usage that counts, like every honest signal in this space, was already quietly there before anyone was farming for it. Being early is not a trick you can perform late. It is a position you either held or you did not. The risks here are real and worth stating without spin. A rollup may run for a year, take your bridge capital and your fees and your attention, and never issue a token at all. It may issue one and draw the eligibility line somewhere that leaves you out. It may change its criteria late or decide the exact behavior you spent months on does not count. You are spending real bridge fees and locking up real value against a maybe. So weigh it as what it is, using a network you would be glad to use regardless, not a guaranteed ticket, because the networks worth your time are the ones that would be worth it even in the world where the drop never lands. Read the actual rules of each program too, because they genuinely differ. Some reward breadth across many apps, some reward raw volume, and some go out of their way to penalize the obvious Sybil loops of scripted wallets. Those are different worlds, and assuming the wrong one can waste a whole season of effort. I will not tell you a given network is safe, legit, or a scam as a blanket label, because that is not mine to declare in the abstract. Read what the team publishes about how it thinks about early users. Watch how it actually treats them when a distribution comes, and judge it on what it shows you rather than the noise around it. Treat the whole thing with plain ops discipline. Keep an honest record of which rollups you actually use, from which wallet, what it cost you to bridge in and stay active, and whether the network still feels like somewhere you want to be. Then read that record without sentiment and prune it. A rollup you funded months ago and quietly stopped believing in is capital and attention to pull back. And what you free up goes to the handful of networks you genuinely find worth using early. The operators who do well here are not the ones spread across every chain in sight. They are the ones truly using a few and honest about the rest. What actually protects you is usage that would make complete sense even if no token ever arrived. A wallet that genuinely used the rollup, explored its apps, moved real value through it, and came back over months is indistinguishable from a real early user for the simplest possible reason: it is one. There is no block to hide inside, no route to disguise, no shared funding trail to explain away, because you are not performing early usage across a crowd of clones, you are actually being an early user as yourself. If my only reason to touch a network is to qualify, I think twice. If my reason is that I genuinely want to use it, the measurement, whenever it finally comes, simply catches me being real. So the reframe I would leave you with is this. Farming Layer 2 airdrops is not a scheme to script a young network at scale. It is a decision to genuinely use the networks you believe are actually worth using early, and to do it consistently enough that no measurement ever catches you faking it. Which rollups are worth your time and capital, how each one tends to measure real usage, and the trackers I use to log what I bridged and used and what it cost, are all written up in full at airdropfarming.org, with no hype and nothing there being financial advice or a promise about any drop. I farm these the boring, methodical way and write up what actually qualifies, rather than whatever rollup happens to be loud this particular week. Subscribe if you want the operator view of this. Layer 2 usage done honestly, rather than faked at scale, and the honest caveats left in every single time. Next time we take one real rollup from the first bridge in, through a full season of genuine, unhurried usage across its apps, and watch how being an actual early user earns real standing far more reliably than any swarm of wallets running the same scripted loop in suspicious unison.